Ethan hadn't planned on going out that night, but the quiet buzz of the bar called to him like a lullaby. It wasn't loud or crowded, just warm lighting, soft jazz, and the faint scent of vanilla in the air. That's where he saw her. She was older, confident, with a soothing smile and eyes that seemed to see past his words and into the ache beneath. Her name was Jen. They talked for hours. She listened more than she spoke, asking questions that made him feel small, but in a safe way, not judged. When she gently took his hand and whispered, "Would you like to come home with me, sweetheart?" he didn't hesitate. Her apartment was cozy. Dim lighting, plush rugs, and a subtle scent of lavender. They kissed, slowly at first. Her hands caressed him not with hunger, but with ownership. She guided him to the couch, and when her blouse slipped down to reveal her soft, full breasts, he felt himself drawn, not by lust, but by a quiet craving he didn't understand. He kissed her there gently. Her nipple brushed his lips. Then, unexpectedly, there was a taste. Warm, sweet, comforting. He pulled back in surprise. "You're lactating?" She smiled, cupping the back of his head. "Yes, baby. And I think you need it." He wanted to argue, to deny it, but she pressed him close. The moment he began suckling, something shifted inside him. The world dimmed. Her heartbeat filled his ears. Her milk flooded his senses with a warmth that softened his thoughts. His limbs felt heavier. Time blurred. Confusion danced through his mind. This isn't right. I'm a grown man. But the milk was too comforting, too full of something he couldn't name, something that made it hard to think, and even harder to care. Jen rocked him, humming softly as he nursed, one hand stroking his hair. "That's it, little one. Drink deep. Let go." His thoughts unraveled. Words became fuzzy. Memories slipped away like leaves down a stream. He tried to pull back, to protest, but all that came out was a whimper. Jen pulled him into her lap once more, her voice low and soothing. "You're doing so well, my sweet little baby." He blinked up at her, struggling to speak. He wanted to ask what was happening to him, why his legs felt weak, why his arms seemed shorter, pudgier. She kissed his forehead. "Sure. No more thinking. Babies don't need to think." Before he could protest, she lifted him effortlessly. It shouldn't have been possible, but in her arms he felt weightless, like a toddler being carried to bed after a long day. He tried to speak again, but only a soft babble escaped. She carried him down the hall, into a room he hadn't noticed before. When she opened the door, his heart thudded in his chest, because he knew, without a doubt, that it was a nursery. Not just any nursery. A baby girl's nursery. The walls were painted a soft blush pink, adorned with hand-painted clouds and pastel rainbows. A white wooden crib stood against the far wall, draped with a sheer canopy and stuffed with plush animals. A matching changing table stood nearby, fully stocked with diapers, powders, bottles, and wipes arranged neatly in little woven baskets. A pink diaper pail sat in the corner. The room smelled faintly of baby powder and lavender. There were framed pictures on the wall, whimsical drawings of baby animals and dresses, a pastel alphabet with illustrations, a scripted sign that read, "Mommy's Precious Princess." "No," he whispered, or tried to. He kicked feebly, but Jen just cradled him closer. "Shush," she said firmly. "You're fussy. That's okay. You'll learn." She set him down on the changing table and, with practiced ease, secured a soft, padded strap across his belly. He squirmed, but it was no use. His limbs weren't strong anymore. He looked down at his chubby hands, now barely larger than a toddler's, and panic swelled in his chest. Then came the humiliation. She untapped a pink, frilly diaper from a drawer. "First things first, my little girl needs her bottom cleaned and padded. Can't have you making messes on the floor." He whimpered, trying to twist away, but she just chuckled. "Still squirmy. TSK. We'll work on that." She gently removed what was left of his grown-up clothes, leaving him naked on the padded table. He flushed crimson, every inch of him burning with shame. Then came the cool wipe across his bottom, the thick layer of lotion, the puff of sweet-scented powder. She took her time, humming as she worked, speaking to him as if he truly were an infant. "And now, baby girl, Mommy just needs to check your temperature to make sure you're feeling okay." He let out a pathetic squeak as she reached for a thermometer, coated it in lubricant, and gently but firmly slid it into place. His face flushed deeper than he thought possible. He looked away, cheeks burning. "Such a shy baby," she cooed. "But Mommy knows what's best." Once she was satisfied, she pulled the thick, ruffled pink diaper up between his legs and taped it snugly around his waist. It crinkled loudly. The thickness forced his legs apart. She added a pair of lace-trimmed plastic panties over top, then dressed him in a white onesie with pink hearts and the words "Mommy's Baby Girl" in glittery letters across the chest. He wanted to scream, to demand that this wasn't right, but the words wouldn't come. Only a soft whine and a fluttering of his lip. He hated how natural it felt to suckle his thumb when she gently placed it there. Jen lifted him into her arms and cradled him against her chest again. "There we go. All nice and padded. Mommy's sweet baby girl." He cried softly, humiliated, confused, and helpless, as she rocked him and kissed his forehead. The next few days became a blur of babyhood. Sweet, surreal, and all-encompassing. Soft lights, lullabies, and babyish routines. His world shrank. Jen cared for him tenderly. Every morning, she changed his diaper, cooing softly about how wet her little girl had gotten overnight. She kept him in a rotating wardrobe of dresses, onesies, rompers, and frilly socks, all in pinks, pastels, and florals. She brushed his fine hair and even clipped little bows in it. Diaper changes were frequent and thorough, done on a padded table with soft wipes, powder, and cooing affection. Each time she fastened the tapes on his thick, crinkly diapers, she'd kiss his tummy and murmur, "There we go, my precious baby girl." She breastfed him several times a day, holding him in her lap and humming lullabies while he nursed. He found himself melting into the comfort, his body relaxing with each rhythmic suckle. It was humiliating, yes, but also strangely comforting, deeply calming. It quieted the storm in his mind and lulled him into a dreamy haze. Mealtime meant being strapped into a high chair, where she spoon-fed mushy, pastel-colored baby food, spooned carefully into his mouth as he sat strapped into a pink high chair decorated with cartoon animals. When he got fussy or refused to bite, Jen would gently scold him. Little one," she'd say, tapping his nose with the spoon. No tantrums at the table. And once, when he kicked over his bowl in protest, she sighed, picked him up, and carried him over her lap. "You need to learn, baby girl," she murmured, pulling down his diaper and delivering a firm but loving spanking. Just enough to make his bottom sting, just enough to make him cry softly into her shoulder afterward as she cuddled him close. She dressed him in a rotating wardrobe of baby girl outfits, lacy dresses, onesies with puff sleeves, frilly socks, and pastel bonnets. Every morning was a new ensemble, and everyone was chosen with a smile and a kiss on his forehead. "You're my perfect little princess," she'd say as she brushed his fine hair and pinned on bows. The playpen became his realm during the day. Surrounded by plush toys and soft blankets, he found himself napping, giggling, and playing with rattles without even realizing how far he'd surrendered. Nights were spent in a crib with high wooden bars, a mobile spinning above him while Jen tucked him in, her lullabies soothing him into sleep. Then came the public outings. She took him to the park in a large stroller, his dress bouncing with every push, pacifier bobbing in his mouth. People cooed at him, assuming he was just a very adorable baby girl. Jen would smile proudly and say, "She's my little angel." Ethan blushed so deeply he thought he might melt. He blushed furiously, unable to do anything but kick his legs and hide his face. At a boutique baby store, Jen proudly showed off her daughter to the staff, letting them fawn over him. He wanted the ground to swallow him whole when they picked out new bonnets and booties, just perfect for such a precious little princess. At the grocery store, she placed him in the shopping cart seat, his legs dangling helplessly in thick diapers under a ruffled dress. She pushed him through the baby aisle, selecting more supplies while chatting to him like any loving mommy would. The most surreal moment came when Jen's friends first visited. 3 women arrived, all of them older women with amused, indulgent smiles. They complimented Jen on her parenting and took turns bouncing him on their knees, patting his thickly diapered bottom and pinching his cheeks. cooing and fussing over the baby. They took turns holding him, feeding him, changing him, even commenting on how cute he looked in his pink-footed pajamas. "Looks like you've got yourself a real sweetheart," one said, bouncing him on her knee. "She needed this," Jen replied warmly. "She's much happier this way." And Ethan, no, baby Ellie, as Jen now called him, could only gurgle and nuzzle into her shoulder, too deep in his new world to do anything else. He hated how small he felt, but even more how safe. Somewhere deep down, part of him had stopped fighting. Each night ended in her arms, suckling at her breast until sleep claimed him, safe and warm and very, very small. The days melted together like cotton candy on the tongue, sweet, sticky, and impossible to separate. Morning light always came gently in Jen's home. Soft curtains let the sun filter through in a golden haze, warming the nursery that now belonged to baby Ellie. She'd wake up in her crib to the sound of gentle humming, a melody that seemed to float through the house and wrap around her like a blanket. By the time she opened her eyes, Mommy Jen was already there, reaching in with open arms. "There's my sleepy girl," she cooed, lifting Ellie from the crib with practiced ease. "Did baby have sweet dreams?" Ellie's diaper was always the first concern, damp and warm after the night, sagging slightly between her thighs. Jen would carry her to the changing table, humming softly while she stripped off Ellie's footed pajamas and unfastened the tapes of her diaper with that same knowing smile. Someone made a soggy little mess, didn't she? Such a helpless baby girl," she whispered lovingly as she cleaned Ellie with warm wipes, powdered her carefully, and taped her into a fresh, puffy pink diaper. All clean and crinkly again. Just how Mommy likes her. After a fresh change, the real magic began, dressing up. The wardrobe Jen had prepared seemed endless. Lacy rompers, pastel dresses with ruffled sleeves, oversized bows, heart-patterned tights, soft Mary Janes. Each outfit was chosen to make Ellie look and feel every inch the dainty baby girl she now was. And Jen dressed her with the care of a seamstress and the affection of a mother. Breakfast followed in the high chair. Today's menu: banana oatmeal with a splash of breast milk, spoon-fed lovingly one bite at a time. "Open wide for Mommy," Jen would sing, guiding the spoon toward Ellie's lips. When Ellie pouted or squirmed, Jen gently patted her thigh and gave her a firm look. "Babies don't fuss at breakfast, little one. Do you need Mommy to remind you how we behave?" It only took one sharp smack on her thigh to remind Ellie what happened when she acted out. Jen didn't need to raise her voice. A light spanking, 5 or 6 firm swats over her diaper, or a stern timeout in the playpen was always enough to bring her back to submission, her head resting on Jen's shoulder as she sobbed softly into the fabric of her dress. Despite the occasional discipline, Ellie had never felt more cherished. Breastfeeding sessions were becoming more frequent now. Jen insisted they were essential for bonding, and Ellie had stopped resisting. She would curl up against her mommy's breast, mouth latching instinctively, suckling while Jen stroked her hair and whispered lullabies or dreamy affirmations. "You're my baby girl. You belong right here," she whispered. "You don't need to worry about anything. Mommy knows what's best." And the more Ellie nursed, the more she believed it. Outings became part of their routine. One day, Jen dressed Ellie in a pink and white sailor dress with puff sleeves and a matching bonnet. Her diaper bulged beneath white tights, and her shoes made the faintest tap-tap sound as she was carried to the stroller. They walked to the park, where Jen laid out a pastel picnic blanket and fed Ellie mashed pears from a jar while other mothers watched from afar, smiling at the adorable baby girl. Some even came over to chat. "She's just precious," one woman said, peeking into the stroller. "What's her name?" "Ellie," Jen beamed proudly. "She's my special girl." Another woman leaned closer. "She looks so peaceful. You must be a wonderful mommy." Jen chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from Ellie's forehead. "She needs a firm hand now and then, but yes. Being her mommy is the best thing I've ever done." After the park, they stopped by a boutique baby store. Ellie was carried in, resting on Jen's hip with her diaper crinkling audibly with every bounce. The shop assistant cooed immediately. "Oh, what a darling little angel. Looking for something special today?" "Yes," Jen smiled. "Some new dresses and a pacifier clip for my little one here. She likes to toss hers when she's fussy." Ellie blushed, burying her face in Jen's shoulder. By the time they got home, Ellie was exhausted. Jen bathed her in a warm bubble bath, gently washing her hair and skin, talking to her the entire time. "Babies need their rest," she said, wrapping her in a hooded towel covered in bunnies. "Especially fussy girls who need mommy to keep them in line." That night, after one final change into a nighttime diaper and footy pajamas with clouds and hearts, Jen rocked her baby girl in a plush glider, whispering softly, "Mommy's so proud of you. You're doing so well, my precious Ellie. You don't have to be anything else anymore. Just be my baby. My sweet, obedient, diapered little girl." And Ellie, nestled in her arms with a pacifier in her mouth and a full tummy, drifted off, no longer fighting, no longer questioning. By the end of the first week, something had changed in him. The humiliation hadn't lessened. He still blushed every time she called him her pretty princess or praised him for making big girl weddings in his diaper. But the resistance inside him had softened. What once felt like punishment now felt like care. Structure. Safety. She always knew what he needed before he did. When he got fussy, she held him. When he whined, she hushed him with a warm bottle or the gentle tug of her nipple. And in those quiet moments in the nursery bathed in afternoon sunlight, while resting in her arms, Dressed in soft flannel footy pajamas, he began to feel something strange and frightening peace. One night, after she'd bathed him, powdered him, and dressed him in a frilly nightgown, she sat in the nursery rocker, cradling him against her chest. He stared up at her with wide, glassy eyes. "Love you, Mommy," he mumbled before he could stop himself. Her smile was radiant. She kissed his forehead, stroked his hair. "Oh, my sweet baby girl. Mommy loves you too." He suckled her in silence, tears rolling down his cheeks. He didn't know why he cried, only that he needed her, in a way deeper than he'd ever needed anyone. By the end of the second week, Ellie no longer remembered what it felt like to wear grown-up clothes, or even think grown-up thoughts. Each morning began the same soft lullabies, a soggy diaper, and Mommy's loving arms lifting her into a new day. And yet, every morning felt more special than the last, as though Jen was carefully painting Ellie's new life stroke by gentle stroke. They had fallen into a rhythm, a beautiful little world of their own. Mommy began introducing daily rituals to help Ellie stay in the right little headspace. After breakfast and a morning change, they had mirror time. Jen would sit Ellie down on a plush pink rug in front of a tall mirror. She'd prop her up, brush her hair slowly, and talk to her in a sweet, soothing tone. "Look at that baby girl," she'd whisper, gently guiding Ellie to look into her own reflection. "See those rosy cheeks? That pouty little mouth? That thick, puffy diaper between your legs? That's who you are now, sweetie." Ellie blushed every time, but she didn't look away. Jen would tie her hair into pigtails or soft curls with pastel bows and praise her for being such a pretty girl. Then came crib time journaling, a strange but soothing activity. Jen would hand Ellie a soft, padded baby book and a chunky crayon. Though Ellie's coordination had regressed, her handwriting more like scribbles than letters, Jen insisted it was important. "Just draw what you feel, baby," she said, tucking Ellie into the crib with her plush bear. "Show Mommy what's in that sweet little mind." Most pages ended up with hearts, clouds, or crude stick figures of Jen holding Ellie's hand. But Jen cherished every one, taping them to the nursery walls like masterpieces. The next visit from Jen's friends felt less like an introduction and more like a family reunion. Ellie was no longer shy. They arrived in a flurry of perfume, giggles, and rustling shopping bags. "My goodness, look at her now," cooed Vanessa, the tall brunette who'd changed Ellie's diaper during the last visit. "She's really blossomed." "She's fully baby now," Jen smiled proudly, bouncing Ellie on her lap. "Barely fusses when she wets, loves being spoon-fed, and she's completely pacified by nursing." "She's lucky," another friend, Ivy, said with a mischievous grin. "Not all littles surrender that easily." "Oh, she had her moments," Jen chuckled, pinching Ellie's cheek. "But Mommy knows how to handle them, don't you, sweetheart?" Ellie blushed and nodded, mouth full of mashed peaches. That afternoon, the women took turns caring for her. Ivy changed her diaper while humming a lullaby. Vanessa fed her from a bottle while cradling her in a rocking chair. And when Ellie began to get overstimulated, whimpering and kicking, Jen pulled her aside for a firm correction. She sat on the nursery glider, pulled Ellie over her lap, and unfastened her diaper. "I think someone's forgetting who's in charge," she murmured, giving her baby girl a quick, warm spanking, just enough to bring the tears. Then, with the same tenderness, she cuddled Ellie to her chest, patting her diapered bottom softly, while her friends watched approvingly. Jen began taking Ellie on more frequent public outings, little excursions designed to build trust and reinforce babyish behavior. The grocery store became a favorite. Ellie was always strapped into the cart's baby seat, pink frilly dress billowing out, thick diaper peeking under the hem. Jen would narrate everything to her, treating her like any doting mother would. "Should we get the applesauce with cinnamon, sweetheart?" she'd ask, holding up 2 jars. "Or the one with pears?" Ellie's only answer was a gurgle and a giggle behind her pacifier. At the park, Jen laid a fluffy pink blanket in the grass and let Ellie sit and play with a rattle while she chatted with other moms. More than once, other women commented on how natural Jen looked with her little one. One even asked if she'd consider babysitting. "Oh, I'm not a babysitter," Jen said with a secret smile. "She's mine. Forever." At night, things grew more intimate. Jen introduced lullaby nursing, where she would hold Ellie skin to skin and feed her while rocking slowly in the nursery's glider. A pacifier was clipped to Ellie's romper for after-feeding comfort, and soft classical music played while stars rotated lazily on the ceiling. "You're not just pretending anymore," Jen whispered one night, her hand stroking Ellie's cheek. "You are my baby girl. You don't even remember what it felt like to be anything else, do you?" Ellie's eyes fluttered. She couldn't speak, not in words. But her thumb found her mouth, and she suckled sleepily as Jen laid her in the crib and kissed her goodnight. That night, she dreamed of only one thing: her mommy, rocking her forever, in a nursery that never faded. But the peace didn't last. Something old stirred inside him. One morning, while Jen was folding laundry in the other room, he stood up in the playpen, wobbling on unsteady, diaper-thickened legs, and looked at the door. The old voice in his mind whispered, "You're not a baby. You're not her doll. This isn't who you are." Driven by a desperate need to reclaim some piece of his manhood, he shuffled to the door, managed to open it, and made it halfway down the hallway before she found him. "Where do you think you're going, young lady?" Her voice was sharp, not angry, but full of authority. He froze. "Wanna go," he stammered, but it came out lispy and high-pitched, like a toddler's whine. "Not baby." She walked calmly toward him, knelt down, and looked him straight in the eyes. "No," she said gently, "you're my baby." And Mommy's baby doesn't run away. Before he could speak again, she took his hand and led him back to the nursery. He whimpered and tried to pull away, but she was calm, practiced. Once inside, she sat on the rocking chair and pulled him across her lap. Mommy didn't want to have to do this, she said softly, lifting the back of his ruffled diaper. But little girls who run away get consequences. The spanking was firm but controlled, each sweat echoing in the nursery, sending hot shame surging through him. He cried, not just from the sting, but from the crushing humiliation of it all. When she finished, she kissed his tear-streaked face, held him tight, and whispered, "It's okay now. You're still my baby. You just forgot for a moment." And in her arms, sniffling into her nightgown, he realized she wasn't angry. She wasn't cruel. She had corrected him. Something in him cracked. From that day forward, the resistance never came back. In fact, he began to lean into the role, slowly at first, then with growing hunger. He fussed until she picked him up. He tugged at her blouse when he was hungry. He giggled when she praised him for filling his diaper like a good girl. He even began babbling in baby talk, making her coo and kiss his cheeks with pride. Each new outfit she dressed him in, whether it was a pastel romper, a bonnet and mittens, or a dress with layers of lace and puff sleeves, brought a twinge of embarrassment, but also a thrill. A warm, helpless flutter in his belly. And when she took him out again, this time to a mommy-me playgroup at the park, surrounded by other women and their infants, he didn't resist being shown off. He clung to her, pacifier bobbing, resting his head against her chest while the other mommies cooed and whispered. "He's such a precious little girl," one said. "She really is perfect," another smiled. "How long have you had her?" "Oh, just about a week," Jen said. "But I think she's going to be mine forever." His heart swelled. In her arms, he was forever. Time lost its edges. He stopped thinking in days. Instead, his world became measured by diaper changes, naps, feedings, and the ebb and flow of Mommy's presence. Sometimes there was sun through the nursery curtains, sometimes the soft hum of lullabies, sometimes the crinkle of his diaper as he crawled from one plush toy to another. But thinking, that became harder. Words slipped away. At first, he could still remember them, his name, maybe, or how to form a sentence. But they floated in and out like dreams upon waking. He'd try to speak, and only babble would come. Baba. Ma. Wah. He flushed with shame at first, but Jen only smiled warmly, kissed his forehead, and cooed. "That's okay, baby girl. You don't need big words anymore. Just let Mommy do the thinking." And he did. He used to stand, wobble a bit, hold on to the edge of the crib, but even that faded. Now his world was experienced on all fours. Crawling felt right. When he tried to stand, his knees buckled. He stopped trying. Every movement became slower, more instinctive. He'd crawl across the nursery floor, distracted mid-journey by the jingling of a rattle or the soft texture of a stuffed bunny. He'd flop onto his padded bottom with a happy babble, the thick crinkle of his diaper wrapping him in sound and safety. His pacifier was always close. He no longer just used it, he needed it. Without it, he fussed and drooled and rubbed his eyes until Jen gently popped it back in. The rhythmic sucking calmed his mind like a blanket of fog. He forgot what he had been trying to do. He didn't care. He was safe. He was hers. What little remained of his adult thoughts came in soft fragments. A fleeting memory of jeans. A name whispered in a dream. A vague embarrassment when Mommy's friends changed his diaper together and giggled at how full he was. But even those moments passed like clouds. His emotions became simpler, raw. Hunger made him cry. Fullness made him sleepy. Love came as the warmth of her arms. Shame as the cold tickle of a messy diaper. Excitement as the jingle of the toy keys she'd dangle over his crib. He lived moment to moment, need to need. And in that space, something beautiful bloomed. When she cradled him to her chest, he no longer felt like a grown man humiliated. He felt like her baby. When she bounced him gently on her knee and praised him for a big baby burpee, he gurgled and giggled, proud of himself. He'd cling to her blouse, cheek pressed to her breast, sighing with contentment as he nursed. There was no fear. No decisions. No loneliness. Just Mommy. The weeks passed like petals falling gently from a blossom. Each day, Ellie's world grew smaller, softer, and sweeter, until all she knew was Mommy's voice, warm bottles, powder-scented diapers, and the slow rhythm of being rocked to sleep. Her old life had faded into something distant and unreal, like a dream half remembered. What remained was pure comfort, pure surrender. And then one morning, Jen leaned over the crib with a twinkle in her eye and whispered, "Guess what, baby girl? Today is your first birthday." Ellie blinked up at her with wide, innocent eyes, hugging her stuffed lamb. Jen giggled. "Yes, sweetheart. 1 whole year of being Mommy's baby. We're going to have such a special day." The morning of her baby girl's birthday was soft and golden, sunlight slipping through the frilly curtains of the nursery. Jen entered quietly, humming as she crossed to the crib. Inside, he was already stirring, diapered, pacified, arms splayed, with one thumb curled into his fist. "Good morning, birthday baby," she whispered. He blinked up at her, then babbled around his pacifier. She pulled back the covers, scooped him up with practiced ease, and cradled him against her hip. "Today's your big day, sweet girl. Mommy's going to spoil you so much." The day began with a special bath. Lavender-scented bubbles and a soft pink sponge. Jen washed her baby girl gently, cooing and humming, then wrapped her in a warm hooded towel shaped like a bunny. Back in the nursery, Jen laid Ellie on the changing table and powdered her thoroughly. Today's diaper was extra thick, decorated with cupcakes and little hearts, and taped on snugly. After nursing and a diaper change with extra powder and lotion, just to feel pretty, she dressed him in something special, a white satin dress puffed with layers of pink tulle, complete with heart-shaped buttons, puff sleeves, and a matching bonnet. Ribbons laced through the back. The final touch was a diaper cover. Lace-trimmed, frilly, and utterly girlish. Jen held her up to the mirror. "There she is, my birthday baby," she said proudly. "The prettiest little girl in the whole world." He didn't fight it. He cooed as she clipped a pacifier to his dress with a string of pink beads and kissed his forehead. The living room had been transformed pink and lavender streamers, balloons with "First Birthday Princess" printed in sparkly letters, and a cake shaped like a stuffed unicorn. Her friends arrived one by one, cooing as they entered, bearing presents wrapped in pastel paper. Booties, onesies, plushies, rattles, bibs that read, "Mommy's Little Angel." A high chair sat at the head of the table, decked in ruffles and ribbons, with a matching party hat waiting for the guest of honor. Jen's friends began arriving one by one, each bringing a gift wrapped in nursery print paper, rattles, dresses, plushies, bottles, and pacifiers. They all took turns greeting Ellie with high-pitched squeals and exaggerated coos. "Oh my goodness, look at her. She's gotten so big, but still such a baby. Is she crawling yet in those thick diapers? Oh my goodness, she's just perfect," one woman said, kneeling to squish his diaper and tickle his feet. "You've done so well, Jen." "I know," Jen said proudly, lifting him up so everyone could see his flushed, drooling smile. "She's exactly who she's meant to be." They played baby party games, pass the pacifier, guess the diaper cream, and even a photo session where Jen laid him across a pink blanket surrounded by rose petals and glitter letters spelling one. He couldn't speak, couldn't walk, just clapped, giggled, and kicked while all eyes adored him. Ellie sat in her high chair, hands resting on the tray, cheeks flushed beneath the party hat. Jen served her a slice of cake, but instead of letting her use utensils, she encouraged her to use her hands, giggling as Ellie smeared frosting on her face. "Messy girl," Jen laughed, wiping her face with a soft bib. "That's what first birthdays are for." After cake came the presents, each one unwrapped for her by Jen as Ellie bounced on her lap. There were plushies shaped like kittens, musical toys, embroidered onesies that said "Mommy's Angel," and even a custom pacifier with her name etched in glittery letters. "You're spoiled, baby girl," Jen whispered, kissing her forehead. That night, after the guests had gone, Jen sat in the rocker with her baby in her arms, nursing her quietly in the golden twilight. The soft music box tinkling nearby. He was dressed in a footed sleeper, his thumb resting lazily in his mouth. His eyes were half closed, hazy with milk and birthday sugar, body slack and sleepy in her arms. "Today wasn't just your birthday," she whispered. "It was your rebirth. From now on, there's no in-between. No little traces of the big you left. Just my baby girl, through and through." Ellie's eyes blinked slowly as she suckled. She didn't feel fear, only peace. Deep, complete peace. After feeding, Jen placed her in a new crib, larger, sturdier, and with her name carved into the footboard. "You'll be in this crib for a long time, my love," she said, tucking her in with a new plushie shaped like a butterfly. "Mommy will always be right here." The world outside changed with seasons. But inside Jen's home, time moved differently. For Ellie, every day began the same way, soft lullabies drifting through the nursery, the scent of warm milk, and Mommy's hands lifting her from a crib she no longer ever left on her own. 2 years had passed since that first magical transformation, and not once had Ellie dressed herself, used a toilet, or spoken a full sentence without permission. She was no longer learning to be a baby girl. She was one. By now, Ellie had her own rhythm, a perfectly structured day designed by Jen, who had left behind her old career to become a full-time mommy. She had proudly transformed her life just as she'd transformed her baby girls. Mornings began with songs, snuggles, and diaper changes. Ellie had become fully used to wetting without thinking, trusting that Mommy would take care of it. Her body no longer hesitated. It simply obeyed. "I think someone's soaked," Jen would murmur lovingly, checking the squishy front of Ellie's nighttime diaper. "Let's get that princess bottom nice and clean." After changing, it was time for playroom hours. A space filled with oversized stuffed animals, sensory toys, soft pastel mats, and even a big ball pit just for Ellie and her nursery siblings. Other littles who came over for daytime care. Sometimes Jen would dress her in adorable rompers with embroidered animals or frilly dresses with matching bloomers. Other times, nothing but a t-shirt and a diaper that crinkled with every crawl. Ellie had long since lost her adult motor skills. Her handwriting was now illegible, her walk awkward and unbalanced without Mommy's hand. She babbled more than spoke, relying on gestures, giggles, and simple baby words. And Jen? She praised every sound. "That's right, baby. Tell Mommy all about it. You're so clever with your little babbles." Over the months, a tight-knit community of caregivers and littles blossomed around them. Ellie wasn't alone, far from it. There were regular nursery playdates, often hosted in Jen's backyard, complete with splash pads, plushies, and picnic blankets. Her closest friend was Daisy, a curly-haired baby girl with a mischievous grin and a tendency to throw her bottle when fussy. Their mommies often coordinated outfits matching bonnets, twin dresses, and monogrammed bibs. They would babble together in the playpen, pass pacifiers back and forth, or cuddle side by side during nap time. Once, Daisy swatted Ellie with a plush bunny. Both girls were promptly put over their mommy's laps and given firm, diapered spankings before being laid down with pacifiers and tears. Afterward, Jen whispered, "Even the best girls need reminders, sweetheart. And Mommy will always give them." Ellie never tested her again. What had once been taboo was now routine. Jen took Ellie everywhere, dressed in full baby attire. Some days it was the farmer's market, where Ellie sat in the stroller with a sippy cup and a floppy sun hat. Other days it was baby yoga classes, where mommies gently moved their littles through soft stretches. Even skeptical strangers had come to accept the sight of the sweet, diapered girl clinging to her mommy's neck. Jen never flinched from stares. She beamed with pride. "This is my baby," she'd say to anyone who asked. "She's exactly where she belongs." And Ellie would beam right back behind her pacifier, not with shame, but with joy. Because she knew it was true. By the time the sun sank behind the trees, Ellie was back in her nursery. Bathed, powdered, changed, and dressed in one of her many bedtime onesies. Some had rainbows. Others had unicorns. A few were custom-made with messages like "Mommy's baby girl forever" or "Too little to say no." Jen would nurse her, then rock her slowly in the glider while reading picture books or telling stories of enchanted lands full of other babies and their loving caretakers. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," Jen whispered one night, brushing a curl from Ellie's forehead. "And I'll take care of you for the rest of your life." Ellie couldn't reply, not in words. But her hand reached up, grasping Jen's finger. And that was enough. Because even though the world outside kept spinning, inside their perfect little nursery, one truth would never change. Ellie was, is, and always would be Mommy's baby girl. Jen had given her something priceless and new life, one where she was safe, cherished, and truly herself. She stroked his hair, watching him, not just with affection, but with awe. "You're mine," she whispered. "You were always meant to be mine." He wasn't a man in regression. He was a baby girl in truth. No trace of ego. No need for permission. Just soft babbles, clumsy crawling, wide, trusting eyes, and the utter dependency Jen had craved in her deepest fantasies. And she had created it. Patiently, gently, with love. She sometimes imagined what he'd say if he could form real words again. Would he thank her? Would he weep with gratitude? But even those thoughts felt unnecessary. She didn't need to hear it. She could feel it in the way he nestled against her when afraid, in how his breathing slowed when she nursed him, in the limp surrender of his body after a bath, wrapped in a towel with Mommy's baby girl stitched across the hood. He needed her, and that need made her heart swell with a possessive, maternal pride. He wasn't a burden. He wasn't a project. He was her baby girl. Her dream made real.